This is a little bit of a different video. What I'm going to do is I'm going to look at a video and recreate it in Camtasia. This came from a student who had a question. He said, I saw this video, how do I recreate this inside Camtasia? So we'll do our best to recreate as close as we can in Camtasia. And if you have a question like that, if you have something you want me to try and recreate in Camtasia, leave a note in the comments below. So Gary sent me a note and said this is the video he wants to try and reproduce. So the first thing I'll do is I'll play through this video and see what kind of things we need to do, and then I'll reproduce those in Camtasia. Another thing that I'll sometimes do is I'll record this video and then kind of play it inside Camtasia frame by frame if I need a little help figuring out how long something lasts or what they're doing in any detail. So let's go ahead and take a quick look at this. So it starts off, it fades in a logo, fades in some text, moves it down, fades in the .com, and then slides over at an angle, shows the logo, and then shows a title. All right, so let's try and do that inside Camtasia. So to start, we need a logo. What I'll do is I will grab something from the Camtasia library so that you can reuse this. How about an icon like, let's see, how about this film can? Maybe we'll make that it. Okay, so we'll throw this in, we'll make it a little bit smaller. Oop. And we'll put that somewhere here around the top. And, so we'll have our logo, and we said the first thing we want that logo to do is to fade in. So what I do is I'll just go a little bit to the right, I'll do Shift A to add an animation, and then I'll drag this back to the left. Then I'll go all the way to the beginning. So at the beginning, I want this opacity to be 0. I want it to be completely invisible. But then I want it to fade in. Now that fade looks a little bit longer than the fade that they had. So what I'm going to do is zoom into this. And I'm going to shorten that duration down probably closer to like 20 frames or so. All right, so the logo appears first, and then there's some text. So we'll go over to our annotations. I'll grab some text, bring that in. And resize it to the size you want. I'm not sure what size theirs was, but let's say it was 80, and this is Cam Answers, something like that. So I'll make this bigger. We'll center it. It's probably about here, and then there was another text box. So I'm going to just do a Control-C to copy this, and then Control-V to paste, and I'll have this come in a little bit later. And I'll grab the second one, have it down below, so something like a title and then the headline. Right, so whatever the headline is. Okay, so something like this. So very similar. He had this first one fade in, so I'll just do the same thing. I'll go somewhere here inside. Actually, I'll grab both of these. So I'll grab both of the text boxes, do a Shift A to add animations to both of those. I'll grab this one, and I think most of these animations are a little bit shorter than 1 second, so I'm just going to drop these down, 20, 21 frames here, whatever it takes. I'm going to bump that. There we go. We'll make them both 20. We'll try and be consistent with everything being 20. All right, so let's look at what it does now. So it fades in, oh, and those just appear. I forgot to tell it to have 0 opacity at the beginning. So let's go here and go to the properties, and we say we want 0 opacity. Same thing here. Go and make that 0 opacity. Drag this, right there. Makes sense. So that they start one right after the other. All right, so now let's try it again. So that fades in, that fades in, that fades in. There might be a little bit of overlap. I'm going to overlap these just a little bit so that this finishes fading in as the other one starts to fade in. That's probably more how they do it, just something you might want to try and do. And then after they both appear, they slide down a little bit. So let me add, I'll do a Shift A again on both of these. And we say that we want these to shift down to about here, wherever you want those to shift down to. And again, I will make those a little bit shorter, and I'll bump them so that they happen here. So let's take a look now. Logo, word, shift down. That was maybe a little faster than I wanted, so let me extend those a bit. Or maybe I just brought them down too far, either one of those. Let me just bring them up a little bit and see how that works. Okay, that's probably better. And then what I want to do is add another text box. So this is where their company name came in. So I'll just paste again since I had the text from before. And I want this to be like here. And then whatever the company name is would appear here. And I think these might have been smaller and this was bigger. So if you needed this to be a larger font, then make it a larger font. Let's see. Yeah, these two I think need to come down a little bit. So let's do that. We'll bring them down a little bit more. And then this one, oh, it wasn't the company name, it was their logo, or their domain. So this came in, and this was like, camanswers.com. Okay, so let's talk about how we make that appear. So if we just did a general fade, then this whole thing would fade in. There are some behaviors that will let you kind of fade it in across, but the way this logo came in was like one character at a time. So let me show you how we'll do that. We'll go to behaviors, and they did fade in one at a time, but let me drag this down and I'll just show you how this will look. So when we look at the behavior coming in, we do want it to fade in, that's good. We don't want it to do anything during, and we don't want it to do anything out either. So we're just going to take this to none. Okay. Now for in, let me show you what this looks like. Okay, so you can see it fades like across. All right, and what we can do is right now it's saying text left to right, and that's what we want. We're going to leave that alone, and it is linear. It is going linearly. That's great. What we're going to change though is we're going to change the speed. So let's bump the speed all the way up to 100 and just watch what that does. And then you can see it kind of goes across, these appear one at a time, almost one at a time. And so what I can do is bump up the offset and it'll be a little bit slower. So I'm not sure where I want that offset, but let's try this. Okay, good. So you can see the fade really wasn't a fade, it just really appears more than anything else. So if I bump this down, let's try 95. I think I want it probably more than that, but let's see. Yeah, so now it's more like it's appearing one at a time. Let me try 98 and replay this. There we go. That's more of what it does. Now the only other difference is right at the end, the .com appears all at once. So really the text box that they have, so I'm going to copy this and paste this. Copy and paste. There we go. And then I will remove this here. For this one, I just want this to be .com. Or I think it's the dot and the com that come together. So if I put this at the end, right about here, I look at where this one is. All right. There. So it's right about there. That's a little too far. Yeah. So this is as close as I'm going to get. Then I'll move down to this one and delete the com. I'm going to hide this real quick so I don't see it. And then I'll just delete the .com, put some spaces in there, bring this guy back, and let's add a few more spaces in here. Hide this once more. Give me a few more spaces. Well, maybe just one was all I needed. Let's see. Is one good? Yes. Okay. And then all I need to do is whenever this gets done, there we go. So answers, and then right about here is where I want the annotation to start. So I'll come out to here. I'm going to add the annotation, and I want it to start right when this S finishes, right about this frame. And then I'll want this to fade in from here. So we'll make it 20. We'll start it off as invisible. So we'll make it a 0 opacity. And now let's look at how this looks. Good. All right, I need it to fade in a little faster than that. So I'll drop that down and try again. Yes, something like that. So I like that better. Just play that one more time. Yes. So that's how we would do that first intro piece. Let's just play through. I'll just play through one more time to show. We fade in the logo, fade in some text. Then we get the domain pop in. Go back here, play through. Okay, so it looked like the words, the title fades out a little bit at the end. Let's do that too. So these words that are down here will fade out as that's coming in, I think, somewhere, I don't know, maybe around here or so. We'll add 2 more annotations and have those fade out. So let's look at it now. They go down, this comes up. Yeah, I mean, it might, I think these might fade out a little bit later, but you can change the timing. And then what happens? Then yeah, so it fades away, and then everything fades out. So it all fades to black. Okay, so let's just check that out. As this is typing, those fade out, and then here everything would fade to black, which makes sense. So I'll grab all 4 of these, actually all 5 because it's the logo too. Shift A. So we added an animation to all of those, and I'll drop all the opacity down to nothing. Now, these 2 text boxes were already at 0, it didn't matter, but we're just still just adding them all together so we can just make sure everything's fading out at the same time. Okay, so then everything goes to black. Great, then what happens? Then we have this slide in at an angle, and then another kind of title and logo appears. So let's just look here. It slides across, yeah, and then that title and logo appear. Let's just look at it again, play it once more. Okay, so this fades in slowly, and then this comes in like 1 character at a time. All right, so to do that, you would have some kind of video playing here at the bottom. So again, for you to be able to reuse this, I will grab a motion background that you should have in your library. Let's grab the spinning counter, and we'll put that down here. All right, so the spinning counter will be over here somewhere on the right, because we'll have the text here on the left. Now what happens is there's this thing that covers it. So what I would do is I would grab an annotation. I would just go to a solid annotation like this rectangle here, and I'd make it nice and big, like super huge. I'm going to use the scroll wheel on my mouse to zoom out. So I'm just scrolling down, and I'm going to make this huge to try and cover this thing as much as I can. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab it and rotate it. So we saw the angle is something like probably this angle is my guess. I don't know for sure. Oop. So it's probably something like this. So this is how I would do it. We can make it a little bit shorter, I guess. Doesn't have to be quite that tall. Right? And then what you can do is, as you have this up here, there we go. I just want to make sure this corner is good up there, and this corner is covered down here. So we have this shape that's going to cover it, and this is the starting point, and I'm going to do a Shift A to add another animation. I'm going to assume it's somewhere around 20 frames, and this is where it is. Now, I want it to go slide perfectly across. I don't want it to go across and down a little bit or up a little bit, and that value up or down is the Y value. So I don't want to change the Y value at all. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the Y value position here, and I'm going to copy it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to slide this over here, and it should be, it's probably right about, I don't know, here, give or take, somewhere like here. I don't know, wherever it is. And then I just want to make sure it's the same, and it is. If it wasn't, if I moved up a little bit like here, then I would just go in here and I would paste it and hit enter, and then it goes right back. So now it should slide over perfectly, right? And it does. That's exactly what I wanted. So it just slides over. That's all I need. So that's how I would do this. You would add the text boxes again. So, you know, something like these. Well, actually, it could be all of these. So I can just copy all of these, paste them up here. Right, and then the difference is these guys are going to be like over here. We'll have the logo still at the top. I'll zoom in here, make it easier for you to see. We'll have that title. So this, you know, this first title will be maybe about here. The second title will be down here, you know, and it'll need to be like this. Now, when it was coming in, both of these, and I'll just, you know, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select both of these, right click, and I'm going to remove, I'll remove all the animations, because what we wanted to do, oh, let me undo that real quick. I'm going to copy these properties, because where I have it right now is what I want. So I'm going to say this guy, I'm going to copy properties, and then I'm going to remove all the annotation or animations, and then I'm going to paste the properties because it's where I want it to be. And then I'll do the same thing here. I'll copy the properties, I'll remove all the animations, and then I'll paste the properties because that's where I wanted it to be. All right, oop, let's change that. Bump this back to this. You know, something like this. Make sure they're centered. There we go. That's better. Now, just like we did before, I think you saw how these both came in fading kind of like one at a time, and that was the behavior we did. So what I would probably do is grab that same behavior that we used for here, and I can right click it, and I can copy the selected effects, and then go to these two, and then paste the effects. All right, so now let's look at how this last part goes. So it swipes across, and these things, yeah, they come in perfectly. Okay, so so this comes in, it starts, and then this other one comes in. All right, let's look at that. Since we have two lines of text, you can see it's coming in all the left to all the right. That's not exactly what we want, so I'll grab this second piece, I'll go to the behavior, and rather than all left to all right, what I'll do is I will change the text from first to last. All right, so now when I replay this, you can see that it comes in like that. Good. And we might want this to start a little later. I think they have this kind of finish at the top first. So whenever this finishes, that's pretty close, we would have this appear. Let's try that once more. Good. Where does this start? Ah, I see. So this starts in the middle. That's not where we want it. So what I'll do is I'll right click and I'll copy its current location. I'll go to the beginning and I'll paste its properties because we want it to start there, and then drop its opacity down. So let's try once more, slide over, logo appears, and if that's sliding over, maybe we'll have the logo appear after it slides over, and then we'll bump all of this to start a little bit later. Let me undo that. Grab both of these. Okay, so let's try this from the beginning. Take a look. So we have the logo, the title, subtitle, slide down, one letter at a time, comes in with the domain, slides over, and then these things appear while we have the video running in the background. Good. Okay, except for this thing down here. We don't need that little fade away that it was doing. So what you'll need to do, and I'll view this a little bit larger, is this shape. We'll want to make sure that we cover the entire duration of the video. So this happens to be 30-some seconds. We'll make sure that shape stays there the whole time. And then you'll just need to play with your text to know when you want it to appear and disappear. You know, if you want it all to fade out, you can do that. We can, you know, go here and add an annotation and say, okay, we want all these to fade out at the same time, so that we can put more text up so we can just watch. Right, okay. So it fades out a little bit sooner than we want. Let me drag this down just because that thing didn't get to finish. But you get the idea. This is how I would reproduce it. So what I'll do is I will save this as a template for you, and I'll let you download this, and I'll put a URL here on the screen that you can go to download this file, this template. And I made one before as well, so I'll give you a couple different versions of this template to play with. I used a different logo and things like that when I tried this video the first time. So if you have further questions, leave a note. And if you have another video or something like that that you want me to recreate inside Camtasia, please leave a comment. Thanks.